Good morning. We're out here at Annabelle's Florist, Chester Lynn's space. He's got little sign up says he's home. He's been back in for a couple months now, and we're going to talk to him about his experiences at the Island Inn and have him tell some stories. He's got some pictures he wants to show. We're not really sure where it's going to go. It's really foggy out today. I think a lot of the ferries aren't running right now. So it gives us a perfect day to sit in and visit. So if you're on the island, Chester has lots of really cool antiques. Good morning, Chester.
Good morning. Good morning.
And can I show him the Blackbeard plates real quick?
You certainly can.
Chester has these really cool pewter plates that date back to Blackbeard's time. They were found out at the Springer's Point. You can see his reflection back in there. And he's got some really cool Ocracoke artifacts. And he's a keeper of traditions on the island, I would say. So here we go. We're going to get chatting with Chester. Let me get this set down. And I'm going to keep an eye on the comments because sometimes it's hard to hear. So you might need to speak a little louder than normal. But here's Chester Lynn. And so tell me just a little bit about yourself first, Chester, before we get started.
I'm a native of the island. Two of my family members were part of Blackbeard's crew, I tell people. One side of my family was from Ocracoke, the other side was from Portsmouth Island. They had a nighttime wedding December the 23rd, 1889.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
And they tied the boats together. It doesn't say how. In the Bible it said they tied the boats together and sailed back to Ocracoke that night. It was called the wedding chain. And the groom was from, my great-granddaddy was from Ocracoke, and she was from Portsmouth, and they sailed back to Ocracoke here, you know.
Oh, wow. I had never heard that story. That's 1899?
1889.
1889.
89. Yeah.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was a nighttime wedding, and they sailed back to Ocracoke. It doesn't say how in the Bible, but it's written in my Bible, and I was worried with this last hurricane that we had that damaged them. I was scared to death because the Bible was in the house, but luckily it did not get, it was okay.
It didn't get damaged, and I know you lost a lot of...
I lost a lot of things. Yeah.
So you told me a story. You were sitting on the bed and had to grab your shoes as they floated by?
I was sitting on the bed, and this cane right here that was beside me, I took this cane and picked my shoes that were floating by me so I would have them shoes to put on, and the water was coming in on the mattress I was sitting on. I looked up to the ceiling. I said, Lord, now you know where I'm at, and I'm not going no further. You know? And it came up and went down so quick. And anybody that's been here for any history knows that don't happen during a hurricane.
No.
I did flounder in the front yard before 2 days after the hurricane.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
Yeah, and this time it was...
And this, we went down. Jesse Spitzer came got me, and they carried me to the fire department, and then they said that later that evening they were going to fly some of us out that needed to be with family, and they said, I asked them where they're going to land. They said they're going to land in the ball field. The ball field's, Mama would have said sticky bottom. But the ball field's in a swamp.
Yeah.
They put sand in it, but it's in a swamp. But when they got there, the water had gone out. It was not dry, but
it was landable. Yeah. Now, and Jesse came to get you in a boat, right?
He got me in a boat on the front porch. He pulled the boat right up on the front porch. I stepped in it off the front porch.
Now, I was evacuated. I had left, and the stories I hear are amazing. So you've had people come in, help you get situated.
I called family and told them that we didn't know whether we were going to save the house or not, but luckily I did have insurance, so I had family. My daddy's sister's boy lived in Chicago, and he was a contractor, and he's helped me build. So we remodeled the whole house, and we had to gut the house and remodel the whole house. And in the process of doing that, we made a handicap. And said I have trouble walking now. But didn't always have that, but it's inherited with daddy's side of the family. And we remodeled everything so the whole house is handicap accessible from there.
That's nice. Yeah, nice. You showed me the ramp out back,
and then we're still getting stuff done. They just done the ramp last week.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah, I think I'm an example of that too. When you see other storms go by, you think, oh, you know, after a few months they've all, you know, everything's all fixed. But this has been a year and a half, and we're still working on it.
When I come home, they drove me. My family drove me here so we could see what we're going to have to do to the house, if we're going to save it or not. And when I saw the island, I had nightmares forever over the condition of this island. It's my island. I love it. My family's been from here as long as here's been from. Mm-hmm. And to see the damage, I didn't think I'd ever get it clean again. My God, it was so nasty. I mean, the street going to the lighthouse was a one-way street because all the stuff from out of those houses were stacked in the roads, and it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable,
but we've come a long way.
It's wonderful now. I mean, the hurricane damaged some of it. They raised. I mean, there was some 400 some houses that flooded. They actually tore down some 60 buildings, because right around close to 60 buildings that we've lost. You know. Some of that's good, and some of it's bad. There's a few things there was one piece I was glad to see go because I wanted them to build something better. That was the school.
Yeah.
But because when they first built it in the 70s, I sat in the lobby underneath a beach umbrella to keep from getting rained on.
Oh my gosh.
Not somebody else. I did it, so I know it.
So the school that they tore down was built in 71, right?
The
one they just tore down.
71, 72, that area.
Yep.
And
it was leaking then.
It was leaking. It leaked terrible when they built it. The windows were them funny windows, and it leaked terrible.
Yeah, so now it's not leaking because it's gone, and they're going to build something new.
So they're going to hopefully build something that more
fits in a little.
Fits in our community.
Yeah. So it was heartbreaking to see it go, but uplifting to know that something better is going to go in the place. So in light of all the things we've torn down, one of the things we're going to talk about is your connection to the Island Inn, which the original Oddfellows Lodge section is still standing, but the parts that you associated with, mostly with the kitchen, and we'll talk about that in a bit, we had to tear down because they were too far gone. But especially after the storm, after we've lost so much, it's nice to try to be able to save some of that history.
It does make, now when they tore the restaurant down, that wing that the restaurant was down, that evening somebody come got me, and I sat my golf cart in a golf cart in front of it. I made that okay. The next morning I was here alone, and it got me because those were the years when I was young, and I worked there some 20 years in between working there and leased it and ran it and had my own business. You know, I had my own business in the Island Inn. We still named it, still call it the Island Inn, naturally. And I worked there. We had the restaurant for like 8 years that I had it, but I worked there some 20. And so my connection to it, I had a passion for it because all the history of it, you know. It actually started probably in the 40s. Liz Starn was one of the first cooks in Muse, and that was in the lobby where the lobby's at now.
Okay, that was where the first kitchen.
That was where the first kitchen was.
So that's the part that's still standing.
That's still standing. So that what we call the TV room was where the kitchen used to be.
Oh my gosh.
That kind of thing. And so I was in. So I different people that owned it. I've been there, decorate Christmas trees in the lobby and done all that kind of stuff.
And if you haven't seen one of Chester's Christmas trees, you got to see them. They're stunning.
I have trouble now, but I've got a whole album of ones I've done through the years in both churches and all that, you know. But the Island Inn, I love the Island Inn. It was a passion. Luckily.
Can I show them a couple of the pictures?
Yes, certainly can.
Okay. Which one do you want me to show first?
Show that one there, the dining room.
Okay.
That one I had it first.
So I'm going to hold it up, see if I can do this right. Hold it up to the camera. So this is the dining room as a lot of us remember it. This was from the 80s.
That was in the 80s and early 90s, and I had bought like a lot of the old oak tables and burley twist tables and that kind of thing, you know. And one of the things I did in that picture, there was 3 columns holding up the dining room. I did have 2 of them. When they tore that down, they brought them here and put them in my shed. Well, when they cleaned out things to make room for put my furniture that they saved back in the shed, then they throw them away, and I've been sick, but ain't nothing I can do about it.
It's hard because you got taken off the island after the storm. You couldn't oversee it.
You can't remember everything because my family, you know, this is the house I grew up in, you know, so you can't, and then things been passed down for hundreds of years in families, and you can't.
And then the emotional trauma of having lived through a storm fogs your brain too.
Yeah, so, I mean, and then that other picture in the bottom, now I don't know if that'll show up.
This one?
Yeah, that one. That one is a picture that Helen Starn owned the Island Inn in the early 70s and late 60s and early 70s. And in that picture, there's all a bunch of Vince is in there.
Vince is right there.
And
it's getting foggy.
Joyce is in there. Evelina's in there. Vince's mom is in there. A whole bunch of different people.
And that's you in the very front, right?
That's me in the very front.
Yep.
And Helen Starn. And in the wall, there's fishnet on the walls because Helen Starn had the artist Joko decorated and do the whole inside the dining room.
And Joko had his studio in what's now Books to Be Read, right? He was from Ohio.
Later he on the porch to the Island Inn, he used part of that as a studio for a good many years.
That's right. It was the Joko studio out there. I'd forgotten that.
Porch, because they had lots and lots of art, and there was a big canvas painting on one end that Joko had done, and Blackbeard had his head in his hand, with his eyes still working, and beside him the trunks with treasure falling out of them, and the art, it was beautiful that he done, but then later it got destroyed and thrown away.
That's a shame to lose stuff like that.
That's the reason I tell people, be very careful what you think, you know, you're throwing away.
I know, and it's hard sometimes because you can't save everything, but you try. Can I show them this picture?
Yeah.
This picture, explain what we're about to see.
This picture, when they put the other wing on the other end of the Island Inn, the Navy base, which was down by the Coast Guard station, they tore that building apart and put it all over. And the wing that was on the other end of the Island Inn was at first used as a dance hall, and that was when they had a dance in it. And then later they turned it into rooms and made it into 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, and 9 was the rooms.
So yeah, they had to partition it out when they turned it into
rooms.
Yeah, and last week when we talked to Al, we talked about how they actually moved the Island Inn back from closer to the harbor, and what was the dance hall was part of the naval barracks. It was down where the Cedar Island and Swan Quarter ferries come in. Yeah. So they moved that in, I think, the late 40s.
That was where the dance hall room was.
Yep. So your time as a restaurant owner there
was when I had it in 84 to 92. One of the times that in the 80s we had 250 some people for breakfast and 260 some odd people for lunch. So that morning we had over 500 people, and that was in the 80s, not now. You know that.
Wow.
And so, and then years ago when they used to have the AA convention, Alcoholic Anonymous convention, they used to have a fish fry at the Island Inn, and they had it like close to 20 some years, and I cooked it almost every time.
Oh my gosh.
You'd
be worn out by the end.
The group or some of us worked there worked there and done it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All those different years that we done, you know, that kind of thing. Most of the time it was a flounder. It was what
Flounder, bluefish, mullet,
that
something.
kind of thing. Yes, what we done.
Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of island locals have worked in the island inn over the years.
If there was a rumor that went around, if something went wrong, they said, well, they told it to the island inn, and meaning that all the local people told it.
Uh-huh.
You know, meaning that they said, well, they told it to the island inn, meaning that that's where all the local people worked at, and they all told it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, so I laugh about those kind of things, you know. When we had the restaurant and we would have a hurricane, a lot of times we would take and we knew a hurricane was coming. We cooked all the seafood and carried it to different people on the island.
Because you knew the power was probably going to go out.
We tried to save as much as we could, and the things we'd already had out that we had, you know, oysters or shrimp or clam chowder or anything like that. Many a piece of that been toted to a different person on the island here, and we used to have wonderful hush puppies. I've seen them taking hush puppies and order them with ice cream.
What?
They ordered them with ice cream.
Oh my gosh.
And then in the middle, on a lunch day in the summertime, they would order butterscotch sundaes, and it would make the waitresses mad if somebody went through with one of them because they knew that dining room was full. Everybody would order. You know? So I remember those kind of things. You know?
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. And sometimes did you say you would dance after shifts?
When Elvis Presley died, we were in the night shift. We were working, and in the evening time, on the nighttime shift, they would run a radio, and when we weren't busy, we'd dance in the middle of the floor in the kitchen, and we'd dance in it. Then we put some more stuff together, you know, and
take it out
and take it out and do more. When I first started going to the Assembly of God Church, when I was real young, I was a dishwasher to the Island Inn. And I like them old hymns. Everybody knows me unless I like the old hymns. So I would sing them, and I'd sing them live. And the people in the dining room would send requests in. And I get embarrassed, but I kept
But it didn't stop yet.
It didn't stop me. I kept right on going. I had a lot of fun with it. So those memories are wonderful to me. You know?
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I remember as a kid going there. It was the place to go Sunday after church or anytime.
When I was tending to Myra Wahab, I used to go in her. I would go in her attic and these pieces are from the Island Inn when it was the Oddfellows Lodge. That pieces that I got out of Stanley Wahab when he bought the Island Inn and turned it and made it into what we call the Island Inn or coffee shop and different names that he had for it. He had took those pieces that he found in it and put in the attic, and I found it, and luckily
saved him.
Everybody knows me. I don't throw too much away. I save, and these are pieces that I saved in a big banner here, and so
I'll hold that up just a minute and put the hat on. Show the hat.
Okay.
I'm trying not to get in the way. So this is, I think we can see it. I'm on the other side then. This was a poster about the Oddfellows Lodge. And oh, look at that. Fancy. Fancy. So the Oddfellows Lodge is what the building was started as.
It was started at the Oddfellows Lodge, and the Oddfellows Lodge was upstairs, and downstairs was the school.
Right. So the kids were downstairs, and then the meeting house was upstairs. And I did a little bit of research. Apparently the Oddfellows are still in existence. I didn't know that. They had their heyday in the 1920s. There were over 2.5 million members of the Oddfellows. And then by 50 years later, in the early 1970s, they were down to just 250,000 people. And I don't know, there's still a website out. But this Oddfellows Lodge was built in 1901. And I don't think it operated for too long. Maybe.
I don't think it operated too long. I think in the process of that, it didn't operate very long. But in the process of, and the school weren't there for so many years.
Right.
That there is a picture of that of people out in front, standing to the right of the picture, and my grandmother's one of one of the people that the little girls that's in the front, probably first, second grade. I forgot what it was, But when they did have school there, that kind of thing,
Yeah. So that school was operated until the old school was built in 1917, right?
Yeah. The original school was built in 1917, and I actually have pieces of that in my backyard right now where they come off, and so I have some planks from that right now. And then the Island Inn, when they were doing,
I'll move this over here.
When they were doing now that they're getting ready to do some work, that beam right there is all part of a shipwreck that they built the Island Inn from.
It's behind that plant there. It's hard to see.
Yeah, behind that plant.
Right there.
The plant's sitting on that beam, and it's got one of the iron nails in it from where it was used as a ship. And in my cabinet in there where the pewter plates are, there's a nail, and it's one of those hand-forged nails from the 1800s.
Wow. That's just amazing. And they had to... They were hand forged, and then they're thick. You had to hammer them in. Nowadays, the work, pop with a.
Those were big nails. Those were big nails that they had in that. But that's a big nail there.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do, and I've talked to a couple people about this, and you guys, many of you know, we're doing the GoFundMe, and actually on the GoFundMe site, if you scroll all the way down, I think there's a picture. I think I put a picture of the Oddfellows Lodge with the people. It's probably low resolution. Of the folks standing in front of it from about 1905-ish or so. So what we're trying to do is just get information out there about the Island Inn and talk about why it's so important to save, especially after we lost so many houses, over 60 houses. Not all historic homes got torn down, but a lot of historic homes got torn down after Hurricane Dorian. And so we want to try to save this history.
And when we think about that, for years I used to tell that they took part of the shipwrecks. That piece of that shipwreck that Island Inn is built out of, those big beams are not just regular big beams. Most of that's teak and mahogany and rare woods that those big ships were made out of.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I used to think, well, how much would they get out of a boat? They were huge boats. They were huge ships, so they tore them apart and
used them.
And used it.
And that beam, I know it looks a little rough, but you have to think it was sitting on the ground for 120 years.
Yeah, that's a beam's been sitting on the ground for a long time, that kind of thing. So for it still to be 10 inches thick after 100-some years, that says something.
Yeah, and it was used before then, so it wasn't brand new 120 years ago.
It was used in shipwrecked on the beach,
Yeah, so
everybody used to make the deal about the shipwrecks on the beach, and the storm coming, watch the ribs out. The only reason them ribs are up there is because they're not straight. Because if they were, that local people would have pulled them in and tore them apart and used them.
Yeah.
Because that's the only reason they're out there,
That's true.
Because when you live on Oak you couldn't call the lumber companies like we can today, and the truck come by here with a lot of lumber, Everybody, when I was little, it's still hard for me to see somebody throw lumber away when they were tiring them doing this. We used to save boards just because you might need it, because you couldn't get it when I was growing up. And
that's still ingrained in, I think, all of us who grew up here, because even growing up, I mean, we both, you're a little bit older than I am, growing up in the 70s and 80s, you couldn't get, the ferries would stop running at 6 o'clock in the afternoon or 8 o'clock in the evening. And we didn't have Amazon Prime delivery. We didn't have anything like that. So you asked your neighbor, you hope they save something, you save something. And we still do it.
One of the things that I used to like to tell is as a kid, we used to go, if we wanted candy or drinks, we'd go sit on the community store steps. Somebody going in was a family member, somebody was kin to you. They'd buy you candy and drinks, and then we go play some more. And you could get candy and drinks for 15 cents. Try to do that today. Right.
Right.
Drink was 10 cents and candy was 5 cents. many a bar of candy for 5 cents.
So you get those big eyes and ask the neighbors to pony up 5 cents, 15 cents, and
then we go play some more.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to give just a little information about where to donate, and then I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about figs and what we want to do on the site. Okay. We've got a GoFundMe site up. We've got a big goal of $60,000. We've almost reached $7,000. This is a 6-week campaign. The project is actually going to cost at least $1.5 million to complete, which is huge for a little organization like this. So we're really hoping that we can generate support and love for the building.
Everybody that knows me knows my heart there. So I hope that it does where I am real proud to see that they're trying to save this building, because through the years, I won't call names, but through the years we've had some people, they saw a little bit of rot and they tore the buildings down. And some of those buildings, one of those buildings they tore down was a fort of the Revolutionary War. Another, there was some historical things like that. Blackbeard's house was tore down because somebody thought there was a little bit of rot there. Certainly rot,
So we really want to save these few pieces that are left.
You save and you work and you do it, because you do not want to lose that history, that kind of thing, When I go by, I see it sometimes and pull in there now. I see they're working on it, and makes me feel proud to see. I hated to see those wings going.
I did too.
At least the restaurant wing, that was my life, But I am still proud to know that this community is trying to do the best it can to preserve its history.
Yeah. So the GoFundMe, it's Save Ocracoke's Island Inn Oddfellows Lodge. If you go to the GoFundMe site, you can also, a lot of people don't feel like donating online. You can go and send a check with the Oddfellows Lodge or Island Inn Project in the memo to OPS at box 1240, and our zip is 27960. It'll go right, everything will go right to OPS. But the other thing that we're trying to do with the project is, it's a big piece of property, and we're trying to also save some green space in the community, not just more buildings. So we're trying to save the 1901 Oddfellows Lodge section, but we'd also like to have a little garden of sorts, a pathway where you can see some of the local plants, including Chester's favorite plant.
Include fig trees. Everybody that knows me knows I'm considered the fig tree expert on the island.
He's the king.
And I don't apologize for that. I love it to death, and I've enjoyed it, and I've done about research even during the Civil War when soldiers came to Portsmouth Island in the area. They came and stayed at the hospital at Portsmouth. They traded some of their barrack stuff that their families had given them to get local figs.
I hadn't heard that.
So to get local figs to eat.
Wow.
And that was on Portsmouth Island, so it was the same kind of thing here. The local people had, and when we were growing up, everybody had 3 or 4 fig trees in their yard. And now, what we're finding, 2 or 3 of the fig trees that are famous on this island have been here since the 1700s. We're on the verge of losing them. We're on the verge of losing them because people that buy a house, they put it in a drain field, or they cut the fig tree down and get rid of it. Then they think, well, later I'll go to the garden center and get one. And when they do that, the variety that they dug up and got rid of is not available at the garden center anymore.
But you are.
I've done my best to keep that from happening. I got 300 rooting in the backyard right now.
So a lot of people come into us at the Village Craftsmen or OPS and say, where can we get a local fig tree? Your answer?
My answer is I last year, because of the hurricane, I couldn't do it. It upset me down, but I had trouble with my legs, so I've had to have help. But now I've got it, worked on it, and I got a little book that I sell that had to do with the fig trees, that had to do with history, some little bit of history that people may not know about. I actually have 2 fig trees in the greenhouses to the White House.
Really?
I'm proud of that.
Oh, wow.
You know, that kind of thing, you know.
That's cool.
And,
yeah, and you've got a lot of them out there. I looked out back, and he's got a ton of them sitting out there.
Yeah, I got 300 of them trying to get rooted. And when we put on the grinds to the onion, we want to put in grinds so we can put in some of those fig trees, that especially the ones that are on the verge are, you know, going extinct on their own.
So which ones? You gave me a list, but I can't remember them all.
The pine fig is the #1 item. Another one is the sugar fig. Now, some people call the slash sugar fig. That is not historically overcoat. Really, the sugar fig really should have another name, but the local name was always sugar fig. And it's a little tiny fig behind the Preservation Society. That particular tree is from my yard.
Oh, nice.
That I put there. And it has little tiny figs, and they're real sweet.
Really sweet, yeah, and they're just pop them in your mouth and eat them. The pound fig, on the other hand, is the exact opposite.
The pound fig's a big fig, and everybody needs to understand that some figs are not as sweet as others unless they're really ripe. And so it's hard to leave that pound fig on the tree because the birds they like it too, you know. And so but when the pound fig is really, really ripe, it's big. And the old people would like to cook that because it didn't take as many to do a peck, you know.
You could pick fewer of them and make it more quickly than having to pick.
You have a pot full of quicker. And so the pine fig is one. The blue fig, there's only like 3 or 4 of them on the whole island.
Wow.
So there is, and then even to the brown turkey is getting, the most popular is a slash, and that's the one that everybody's bought in. The brown turkey, which is not as many as there used to be.
I think that's what my grandparents always had, was the brown turkey.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time keeping it going, but
yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that the thing needs a little help. It needs to be fertilized. You know, that's the biggest thing I tell people, is to make sure they do fertilize them. And if you want to, you can put the fig trees in big pots.
And take them in the wintertime.
If you're leaving somewhere where you can't, you know, you can take them in. And if you're not, you can put them in big pots and leave it in the yard or on your deck or something like that, you know.
So stop by Chesterland and see all of his new house, basically, and
I'm
his
happy about my house.
antiques.
I tell people I'm not closing my bedroom door for nobody. They can go in if they want to. I don't have anything that I sell in there, but I'm not closing bedroom door.
So proud of how it all turned out.
I'm so proud of being here and that kind of thing. And then I got my historical stuff that I got a few pieces from the lighthouse and they are the original pieces from the lighthouse.
Yeah, those are really neat.
And then I got the pewter plates that belong to Blackbeard are the only private collection that belong to Blackbeard, period, the end.
Yeah.
Everything else comes.
So you got to come check it out.
And then there's a couple pieces off the Carolee Deering ghost ship that comes ashore 21.
It went back. Couldn't decide if it wanted Hatteras or Ocracoke, right? It ended up on Hatteras.
That kind of thing. And there was the 11 crew members. They didn't know why. The 11 crew members. You know, there was a cat on them, and the food was ready to be served, and they never found any people. And to this day, they don't know why.
But some of the cats are still around. They're descendants of some of the cats are still around.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to shut it down, but thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Chester, for sharing your history. It's always fascinating.
I did the Island Inn project with an open heart, and I hope that people do, you know, donate towards it, because while everybody don't realize this hurricane wiped out a lot. When they came in and threw different things out of people's houses, there were a lot of antiques and things like that they threw out. I mean, I lost things that were, in any sense,
priceless to you.
Priceless to me, because they were antique pieces that had been passed down in my family.
And photos got lost too.
Luckily, most of my photo albums didn't. I saved all my photo albums. I had them up and I saved them, and my scrapbooks and photo albums were okay. And the pieces from that were in my cabinet,
Yeah, good thing those didn't get thrown
I
away.
mean, because the key is the original key to the light. I carried it down and checked it a few years ago with the Park Commission, and the park ranger said it works. So you ain't get it, and you ain't getting it. You know.
Well, thank you much. And if anybody has comments or questions, I'll ask you and I'll try to answer on there. But we hope everybody has a lovely day, and stop in and see Chester when you're in town. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.